Good morning, Paul. How's it going?
Good morning, Jacqueline. How are you?
Good. We're starting at 9 a.m. today instead of 10, so I might look a little more tired than normal, but I have my coffee, so I'm ready to go.
That's all that matters.
I'll jump right in and take us through last week's headlines. Our cover story was a story about the latest episode of The Directors, which is a special segment of the Cancer Letter podcast. In that episode, Taufik Awanikoko, the executive director of the University of Maryland Marlene and Stuart Greenbaum Comprehensive Cancer Center, and Louis Weiner, director of Georgetown University's Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center, talked about keeping up morale at a time when many cancer researchers are reconsidering their career choice. I wrote a story about RFK Jr.'s off-the-cuff remarks given to FDA in an all-hands meeting. He urged FDA employees to resist quote-unquote agency capture by special interests and quote-unquote the deep state. I also had the opportunity to write a science story, which is so exciting. I think probably the first proper science story I've written since Trump became president. And it was about the results of a phase 2 trial of tumor infiltrating lymphocytes plus pembrolizumab in solid GI cancers. I was able to sort of dive into the history of TILs TILs in various cancers and how the developers, including Stephen A. Rosenberg, have incrementally improved response in broader and broader indications. We also had a guest editorial by Kevin J. Cullen, which said that President Trump's actions require Mary Lasker-style advocacy. And there's some really fun art with that story, so definitely check it out on the web or in the PDF. And today we're going to dive into Paul's story about the Trump administration's proposed budget documents, the sort of soft budget. So I'll pass it over to you, Paul, to sort of explain what was in those documents and what they said.
I know you guys make fun of me for being nonlinear, but can we kind of go back a second? Because the directors really is becoming more and more important, at least in my view as an editor, because, the cancer program has leaders, and the leaders are the directors of cancer centers. Right now, there is no NCI director. So there's a whole lot of other leaders, and it's very important to have their voices heard and to bring them out to the very front of what we report. The other bit is something you said that struck me as fascinating, which was that this is the first time since Trump inauguration when you were able to write a proper science story, and that is a microcosm of where we are. We're focusing on policy, we're focusing on survival, we're focusing on existential threats, but science! Mm-hmm. Where's the science? Gee. So I think it's really, I applaud you for having made that story happen, because I was one of those people who said, well, can't we just sort of focus on more policy? And I hate this. I wish we could write about nothing but science, but that requires policy. So the other bit I thought that I really loved was Kevin Cullen's piece. It was really a hoot, because what he did was he took Mary Lasker's ads that she placed in newspapers all over America in the run-up to the National Cancer Act, and he wrote, and the ad read, "Mr. Nixon, you can cure cancer." And he produced, or we helped him produce, he wrote it, we produced a very similar ad that says, "Mr. Trump, you can cure cancer." Yeah, you can cure cancer. You can do a lot. More so than Nixon could, for sure, because he's standing on the shoulders of the giants who have been working for 50 years doing the science of the sort that you're not writing about, like Stephen Rosenberg, for example. Because we're spending all this time on policy. And now I can actually address your question, which I still remember.
Yeah, excellent.
So the OMB presented its budget blueprint for HHS, and that involved a cut of about 40% to NIH, bring it down to $27.3 billion. So it's like to a decade ago. That's, and then when you subtract the inflationary, the inflation, so we're back, God knows where. Somebody needs to sit down and figure it out. This was so massive. And by the way, NIH has and can and has objected to this. Yeah. So a 40% cut is completely, totally devastating. Oh, plus, of course, it includes, not surprisingly, a 15% ceiling on indirects. So that's going to hurt everyone.
Yeah.
And, why are they doing it? But the most interesting thing here is that I was able, I had only one day to put this together because I got the 64-page document and I had to plow through it. It involves cutting the NIH institutes and centers down from the current number of 27 to just 8. NCI remains upright. However, if it gets a proportional part of the cuts, then it gets cut by 40%. We don't know what anybody thinks, but I mean, the way it usually works is if there are cuts, the sort of the larger entity decides how to distribute them. So it could be 40%, it could be 0%. Yeah. Who knows? But NCI is standing upright. There are parts of this document that I was unable to figure out in the time allotted. One of them was CDC, and another. I didn't look very deeply at FDA. Let me dispense with that first to be nonlinear. With FDA, the cut was very small, and most of it had to do with on the drug side, the cut was very small, but we don't know the implications of they did zero out the cures, which is what is used to even out the salaries. So FDA will, if that indeed happens, FDA will not be able to hire people at salaries that were never competitive anyway, but at least they were kind of getting towards competitive. So NIH, same thing. So basically, the top salary under Title 42 is and cures is going to be in the 230s. The top salary for the top compensation for the officials of the FFRDC, which is Frederick, is at $400,000, which is interesting because it's a public-private partnership, so it should be more competitive. But it's now topped at $400,000. $400,000 is the salary of the U.S. president. So I think it has to be $399, but whatever. But compare it with the salary of a dean somewhere, and you're getting into like 30%, of what somebody like that earns. So it becomes kind of a very difficult place to go work. And the part that I have not been able to look at, so I didn't really look very deeply at the implications of the cures. I'm just telling you what I'm going to look at this week. Yeah. I mean, this was the time allotted. When you're seeing an NIH cut of about 40%, bringing it down to 27.3, that's billion. That's obvious. The number, but it was less. Some of the things in the FDA piece were somewhat obvious. So that's in there, but I want to look deeper. The place where I did not look because I really didn't know how to begin, because that requires kind of an audit of the budget proposal, and that is CDC. And there I am not seeing something that kind of freaks me out, which is I'm not seeing the grants for cancer registries, grants to states. Now, the United States has what is viewed as one of the world's greatest, if not the world's greatest, cancer statistics, cancer epidemiology, data gathering apparatuses in anywhere. Yeah. This was built since roughly about 25 years ago, when states started receiving these grants. It covers about 97% of the country. And I'm not seeing that in there. This is something that CDC operated. So what does that mean? I don't know yet. I hope to find out. That's one of the things. But there is a new agency that's being built to, in accordance with the RFK Jr.'s plans, and it's an agency for a healthy America. Correct me if I'm getting the language wrong. Yeah, please, because I don't want that to stand. Agency to make America.
Administration for Healthy America.
Administration for Healthy America. So it's getting like bits and pieces of various agencies. Yeah. And it's just very difficult to figure out what goes where. CDC gets carved up pretty well, pretty thoroughly. So it's very hard to figure that one out. So that's my work.
Yeah, that's what you're going to be doing for the next 3 days, 4 days.
So if you don't see it in next week's issue, that means I failed miserably.
Oh, no. Or you just need more time to figure it all out.
Yeah, I just need to get some help on this, because it's just, there's almost no way to make sense of it right now, what is being proposed. And also, this is, it's kind of late in the planning stage, but it's still in the planning stage. I mean, the president has not presented the budget proposal to Congress, and Congress hasn't really looked at it yet. Yeah. In the past, something like that would be dead on arrival. Yeah. But I don't know what that means now, whether Republicans are going to do anything about it. I think they will. That's my prediction, because everybody has an academic institution or a cancer center or medical institution of some sort. Yeah. And in some places, they're the largest employer in the state. Yeah. So. Yeah. And, health research can be bipartisan. I know it's often not at this point, but at least cancer research has, we've quoted this many times, enjoyed bipartisanship throughout its history. But it's better than that. Republicans have been better.
Yeah, true. They've been actively supportive, right?
Yeah, so I have no idea what's going to happen. Now, I don't think they want you to have any idea. Yeah. Because anything that Republicans are doing now, they're doing kind of in secret, under the cloak of not being found out by Mr. Musk, who could then throw a few tens of millions to have them primaried. And I really do not understand what is happening, or I have no idea what Congress is going to do. I don't think anybody does. Yeah. And it does depend on Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get too lost in the terribleness of the world right now, we can, I think, Paul, you've literally anticipated all of my questions. And it was crazy because it was actually in the order that I was going to ask them of you. So linear or not, we're thinking the same way.
Oh my God, that's really scary. That's the scariest thing, Jacquelyn, I've heard you say. And you should have interrupted me
No, you're on a roll. If I ask one question, you go off, so be it. I'm happy to let you go off. I think, honestly, we covered everything. Is there anything else we want to include? I think that this was great. I'm really looking forward to hearing or reading your next story about this. But hopefully, if it all works out.
Well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to yours. You know what? I do have a question. Oh. Can you talk about the science story?
Well, I tried to get as much as I could in my little intro, because I knew that wasn't the story we were focusing on this week. But yeah, I mean, just more, not necessarily even about that story, but just I really enjoy writing about more like mechanism of action, really like biological, molecular bio, stuff like that. And also obviously like, how that affects patients. Like I am craving, you must be too, Paul. I am craving covering an ODAC. Like I miss ODAC so much. Yeah. So it's like just that type of thing, like really diving into like, cause I studied oncology a little bit about, in college and stuff like that. Obviously no expert, but, there's so much for me to learn in this field. Like I didn't really know much about tumor infiltrating lymphocytes before, this story, besides sort of what we've covered in the past. So it was really fun to like get into like really the details of how they work, and so fascinating how they come together with checkpoint inhibitors. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to explain it off the cuff like this, because it's, like I said, complicated, but, they're two separate immunotherapies that are, classes of immunotherapies that are working really well in some cancers and really not working well in some cancers. And, it's not like they're introducing pembrolizumab to try to treat it with pembrolizumab as well. It's not like a chemotherapy regimen where they're trying to do multiple things and, get at the cancer in multiple ways. It's that their TILs express PD-1, and they're basically, that's causing an issue with the TILs. It's not letting them attack the cancer cells. And so they're inputting pembrolizumab like, I might be overstepping here. I'm sorry, Dr. Rosenberg, if I'm overstepping, but in some ways to treat or to get in the way of the PD-1 on the TILs themselves. So it's really the pembro and the TILs are coming together to treat the cancer, rather than treating the cancer from two different angles. And I thought that was fascinating. And I don't know if that made any sense because I'm not the best at speaking, like ad-libbing about science, but I do love writing about it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to nerd out for a second, Paul.
Well, why don't we do more of that? We really need to be kind of remembering what this is about and getting into the science of things.
And patients, right? Like that's the other thing too, is like my thing is science, but the patient side of things is, I think, maybe arguably more important,
That's who's been missing.
Yeah.
We have not heard patient voices at all.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and we need to hear them.
Yeah.
I don't understand why this hasn't happened yet. We're ready to publish anything that's that's coming from the patient's perspective. Yeah. In fact, the sooner that starts happening, the better.
Yeah.
And the sooner patients start talking to their elected representatives, the better. Also, the other piece of advocacy that's missing is there's no NCI director at the moment, and that needs to happen right now.
Yeah. How long has it? Is this like any sort of record for how long we've been without one?
Oh, I'm sure not.
Yeah, it's sort of par for the course.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's highly unusual for an NCI director to be gone from the previous administration. Because they usually go from administration to administration, because it's not really it is a political appointment, but these are not political people, or shouldn't be. But most of them really would be very comfortable working for any administration because they're about cancer. It's, politics doesn't cure cancer, although political actions can make the cure happen, such as the National Cancer Act. Yeah. And this is really important because it's been shown on over 52 years that bullshit does not cure cancer.
You mean literally?
Literally. Bullshit does not cure cancer, has no impact on it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's been shown.
I don't know.
I'm willing to defend this point of view anytime.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I think we can wrap up. Our Katie, our director of operations, is sending me a note in the chat saying that listeners, if you would like to sort of explore the 64-page confidential document for yourself, it's available for download from the story, or in the story from last week, as a PDF. So definitely go explore that on your own as well if you'd like.
Yeah, it's quite a document. Makes for quite a reading.
Yeah.
So
I bet. All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul. See you next week.
Thank you, Jacquelyn.
Thank you for joining us on the Cancer Letter podcast, where we explore the stories shaping the future of oncology. For more in-depth reporting and analysis, visit us at cancerletter.com. With over 200 site license subscriptions, you may already have access through your workplace. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Together, we'll keep the conversation going.
Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for listening.